You are listening to the Parkflyer podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Parkflyer podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Parkflyer podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always is my good friend
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
And how goes it this week? We are back from Holly Springs finally. I guess everybody made it back home.
Yeah, I made it back home.
I did.
Pretty much safe and sound.
Yeah,
You know,
it was
considering
actually
you
a
were
fun
with me.
event. Yeah, it was actually a really fun event. I had a good time. I think Mike was surprised, hopefully.
I definitely was. Yeah, I think you can see that on the YouTube video.
Well,
hey, you guys
I
are
showed
here.
it.
I think I said something silly like that.
You did. You said that, hey, you guys are here. And anyway, it was funny because I showed it to my wife. In case you don't know, we videotaped it, right? We put it on a
That we
YouTube
did.
channel.
Put on the
We're
YouTube
officially, the Parkflyer podcast officially has a YouTube channel. That's the only video right now, but we're trying to figure out how to get it all to work. But if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube. Look up the Parkflyer podcast. I think we posted it on our Parkflyer podcast listeners group on Facebook as well. So go over there, give us a like, subscribe, and we're going to try and put some episodes on YouTube if we can have somebody help us with that. Figure it out how to put the full hour on to YouTube. So that way, if you're a YouTube subscriber and you're on your computer and you can listen to it while you're surfing the internet, we appreciate that. So having said all that, we did. I showed it to my spouse, my wife, and she didn't think you were that surprised, Mike. She's like, "Oh,
Really?
Well, compared to Doug, Doug
was I
was like,
supposed to,
"What the
jumping
heck?"
up and down and waving my hands? Oh my
on
God!
it,
Yeah, think clearinghouse sweepstakes. You were more like
well, it
Subway
wasn't like
Sir,
we
you want a Subway?
we planned
great.
for you to be surprised. Exactly.
Foot
No,
longer.
it just
I don't think it was on the video, but I had said I was just talking about you guys being there. It's like, yeah, it's too bad they couldn't just jump on a plane and come on over. I mean, it would be
I
great.
know. Yeah,
I
but
was
it was
just
fun.
talking about it like minutes before.
Yeah.
So
that was
I
pretty
guess
funny.
that's probably why, because in my mind I was like, yeah, it'd be great if they just showed up,
And then here we were.
and then you were. Yeah.
I know, right? Well, it was a good episode that we did. We luckily got 2 episodes out of it. It was a long day, but we had fun. We finally made it back, and everything is back to normal, I think. However, I will tell you that at the very tail end, if you haven't seen the video, I won't spoil it, but at the tail end of the video that we posted on YouTube, Jay and I kind of let the cat out of the bag that we went to the field and forgot some stuff. So anyway,
Well, it's the story.
we wound up-
story of our lives.
I know, right? We always went.
We're gonna have to
and
change
I was down
the name
there.
of the podcast.
I know, the forgetfulness.
Yeah.
But anyway, I spent the 2 weeks down there with Jay, and we kind of spent a few days before, and then we went to the Holly Springs, the Wings Over Springs event. Then we came back, and we had 4 or 5 days to kill. I had to come back on Friday, and so Jay and I decided, on Thursday we were going to go out there, and we totally forgot to finish out the podcast. We wound up going out there and trying to fly some stuff, and left some wing bags and whatever batteries and stuff back at the house. And then the next day I was leaving. It was on Friday morning, and so Jay and I decided that we were going to grab the stuff that we left and throw it in the trailer, because we had just finished your trailer as
Yeah,
well.
we did.
We finished putting the shelving in and getting everything all kind of rigged in there where it could take more than just one airplane, and everything turned out really cool. We'll have to get him to post some photos on our listeners
So
group.
now I have a place to stay when I come over to Jason's.
That's
There you go. You
You
can
don't have
sleep
to
in the
sleep
trailer.
outside anymore. You can actually be undercover.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the hammock,
really
and we
happy
can move
about
it
that.
into the trailer. Although I will tell you that I was working inside that trailer. It was hot. He had to go get a fan and kind of stand there with the fan on me, but it was really, really hot. But anyway, it has 2 shelves in it, and you can put it on there. We threw the Turbo Beaver in there and struck out to the field. Luckily, Jim was out with us. He made it out and brought some airplanes. Got to fly a couple of, the L-39 a couple of times, I think, there, Jay, and he
that we
flew
did.
his Aggie, and we flew his new EDF too. Jim picked up an EDF.
Oh, that's
a
right.
little
That's right. He
Panther.
sure did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He picked up another.
So I
Motion
was able to
RC.
help him maiden it when we were there, and we got that thing all trimmed out and flying good. And then
Well,
we
not
went-
exactly, because we did have some problems with it, if you remember.
We did.
It was
No, we
flying.
did.
It was a little squirrely, and we were both kind of wondering why that was, because usually most things from Motion RC, they may have a little issue here or there, but this thing was kind of wonky, if you remember.
Yes. So Jim brings it out, and he says, "Hey, I've got this EDF, and I want you to maiden it." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." I've been flying the Jay's L-39 probably 8 or 9 times that morning
Sure.
anyway. Because we took the generator out there and we were just kind of charging batteries. So we were flying it, and then Jim puts it all together, and he says, "Okay, I want you to maiden it and get it all up to speed, and then I want a buddy box with you because I've never owned an EDF before," which I don't. I think that's what he said,
Yes.
right? He's never
Right.
owned one.
Correct.
So I tossed it. Jay tossed it in the air. It actually took off. It flew really well to begin with. But it did have, some characteristics that were kind of strange. If I tried to do something like a real steep turn or I was cruising down and I would give it control inputs, the airplane would kind of do some funky things like just pitch to the ground. And so I told Jay, I was like, something's not right with this. And so I finally got it all trimmed out. I went ahead and buddy boxed, and now I did all that without the gyro
It had a gyro
on.
Right.
It did have a gyro. He put a lemon gyro in it.
Yep.
So, so anyway, I got it all trimmed out, turned the gyro on, and the airplane flew beautifully straight and level. Once you started messing with the control inputs, though, to go up, down, left, right, it started kind of fighting you. And I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. So I turned the gyro way down, like almost off. I turned the pots down, I turned the gain down, and it would fly on the gyro. And, it seemed to be as long as you were straight and level or just going into a nice gentle turn. But when you were in the turn and you started kind of pulling hard or trying to roll it or whatever, it did some really funky stuff. And if I recall, I rolled it and it just did this real weird loopy roll. It wasn't axial at all,
Nope.
which was kind of weird for me. So anyway, they came down and we put the buddy box together, and I let Jim, basically buddy box on me, and Jay launched it. I flew it around, and then I said, "Okay, if you're ready, I'll, give it to you." And so Jim flew it left and right, trying to control it, and he and I were talking about how to fly an EDF and, adding power in the corner so it didn't stall, that kind of thing. And it's just a little Parkflyer. I think it's a 70 millimeter, 60 millimeter maybe.
I think it's like 60, 65 millimeter.
Right.
fan.
It's from Motion RC,
Yeah.
so you can go look at it, but it's just their
It's
little
just like
Panther
their
for
little
the park.
Panther.
And it doesn't have landing gear or
Nope,
anything like that.
It's just a yank and bank.
Yeah. So anyway, there's no rudder,
rudder,
on it or
nothing.
anything.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I told Jay, I was like, "Well, hey, why don't you fly it?" And Jay was like, "Oh, okay." So he jumped on the sticks, and how'd it feel?
Yeah, well, it was like you said, when you were flying straight and level, it was fine. When you got into the corners or you pulled hard, and because like you said, there's no rudder, it's just yank and bank. So if you got into a corner and you pulled hard, it just did some weird things, like
It try to roll over on itself, I think.
kinda, or it would
or
kind
pitch
of
over, or pitch over.
It just was weird. So it was just one of those things. So anyway, I'm flying it around. I'm just doing real gentle on the sticks. It seems to fly great, and that was the weird. It would just fly great. The gyro seemed to be working well. It wasn't like there was too much gain in it, or too little gain. The gain seemed to be just about right. So anyway, I was kind of coming around, and I said, okay, I'm going to bring it in. And I flew out, and there's a little bit of a cornfield by the field that we're at, and I'm flying over the
Right.
field, and I'm just kind of coming down, and I don't have much power in it. It's just kind of coming down a glide slope, and I'm about at that 15-ish foot high level, and I go to bring in the power to get me to the field, and then the plane just pitched over, whoop, and just went over, and I cut the throttle, and I try to push out of it. But the plane goes wham right into the cornfield, and I'm like, "What the hell just happened?" And Mike's
And
like, "What'd
J-
you do?"
All
And
right,
I'm-
that's it.
and
Jay
I'm-
doesn't
John-
need to fly anybody else's plane.
Right,
dude,
I
I
know,
felt
right?
bad 'cause
Because
this
he
is
had
the-
just
this-
flown. He had just flown your fun racer and did almost identically the same thing. And Jim was kind of like, "Well, that didn't last long, because you just heard this incredible smack. I mean, it was a horrible sound. I mean, all of us, and it disappeared into the corn, and all of us were looking at each other, and Jay's just like, oh, I mean, he's hanging his head.
'Cause look,
And so
I
we
didn't
started
do-
walking
like
over
I said,
there.
I didn't touch anything. I'm just letting the plane just do its thing and come in. I give it some more power, and like I said, it just nosed right the hell over. And I'm like, what is?
And
going
and
on?
it was almost violently looking.
Right.
I mean, it was the fun racer was nice and smooth, just this arc into the ground. This thing actually like almost tumbled itself into
Right.
the cornfield and made this horrific noise.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought for sure there was foam everywhere.
So we get over there, we find it in the field, and luckily there was enough corn and Jim had added a bunch of reinforcement to the plane that maybe had just
Right.
a little small dent in the leading edge, but other than that, it was perfectly fine. So
Wow.
I was relieved because I thought I had to buy another
Yeah.
plane, but we bring it out and we're just scratching our heads, and we're trying to figure out because the plane it flies okay, and then it just flies wonky. Flies okay, then it flies wonky. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. And you were talking about something about AK Mike, and then it hit you, Mike, or was it something that I said to you? I can't remember.
It was that you guys were having a conversation. We all kind of took a break. I was sitting in the chair, and you know how you kind of sit there and you're just kind of going through. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm like, holy smokes, I mean, Jay's a really good pilot. There should have been no reason why that airplane just pitched out of control. And so I'm in my head, I'm just going through everything, there's no rudder, there's no propeller, it's a EDF, there's only ailerons, and I think he had those wide.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's hardly anything to this airplane. And I don't know why you guys were talking about, I don't even remember what you guys were talking about, but all of a sudden I just looked up and I said, hey, Jim, did you take that receiver out of another airplane? And he said, yeah. And I go, it's in the Delta configuration, isn't it? It's in the Delta wing, not a regular, aileron, elevator, rudder, normal configuration. And I stood up,
that's
walked
right.
over there, opened it up and looked down in there. And sure enough, the dip switches that are on that lemon were all in the Delta wing configuration.
Yeah, because he took it out of the Polaris, which
Correct.
which is just a Delta wing.
So we had been flying this airplane expecting it to react like a normal airplane. So when he put one control surface in, it would actually move the elevator, ailerons, rudders, and all that stuff. No rudder, but ailerons in the elevator would move like they would on a Delta wing. So I was like, okay.
And the interesting idea there is that half of the controls will work properly. In other words,
Correct.
in one, the up would go fine, or the down would go fine, but the up wouldn't.
Correct.
Right.
Or the
And-
same with the ailerons.
Wow.
The ailerons, you could go one
Wow.
way, but if you went the other
Right, it'd be
way, it would
fine.
add elevator.
You'd change
And that
the
was
elevator, yeah.
right. And that was the problem, is that if we were flying, in a right-hand turn circle, it seemed to,
all
or actually
good.
it was a left-hand turn. If we were flying a left-hand turn
It's all
circle,
good.
it went fine. But when Jay turned around and flew right-hand circle,
Pitch
it
down,
was-
pitch down, pitch
yes, it was pitching,
Wow.
pitching, and Jay was like, "What the?" And that just happened to be he was in this low right-hand turn, and when he,
Wow.
tried to correct it, it just went right in the ground. Which is, now that I'm thinking about it, sitting there looking out at, I was basically going through his sequence, as I was looking at downwind, and I'm thinking, why did that do that? So sure enough, we jumped online. I actually got the manual and said, okay, this is what it should be, and so we popped the dip switches back to where they should be, plugged it in, and
Dun, dun,
oh,
dun.
what a difference.
Okay, now
What a difference it made.
So one for Mike, one for Jay.
Yep,
Mike Barcelona.
that is correct.
And one for Jay. And so Mike, you're the only one who hasn't done it yet.
Done the dip switch thing or the
Yeah.
the crash?
Yeah. No, the dip switch thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, luckily for me, I'm most of my airplanes now have the Demon Cortexes in them, so I haven't
Yeah.
used the limit in quite some time. And that's actually when I looked down in there, it didn't dawn on me until And maybe that's what it was. I was thinking about your airplane, the Funracer, because I was thinking, gosh, that did I kind of mirrored in the back of my head. It kind of matched what yours did and what the EDF did at the same time. And I think that's probably what kind of triggered that little memory, is that I was like, wait a second, that looked a lot like the Funracer when Mike and I flew it. And then I remembered you had a lemon receiver too, and we had, had it in the same configuration. So luckily Jim was like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. I don't know how you remembered that or how you knew that. And I'm like, dude, I literally, had I left the day before, it would have, I would have left it like that. These guys would have been flying that thing, wonky the whole time. But it just dawned on me.
Not for long.
No, it wouldn't have been for
long.
long because it was it wasn't, a handful going one way versus the other way. So it would have been weird. I'm sure Jay would have figured it out eventually. But
yeah, looking at
anyway,
the remains of the wreckage.
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's the problem.
I know, right? Hey, we found a problem. So, all right. So that's the lesson: is if you're flying a lemon receiver or any gyro, make sure your position on your dip switches or in your configuration are properly matched to the type of aircraft that you want to fly.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there because this also means that you did not check the surfaces properly when you were doing left and right. You didn't look at the elevator also because you would have spotted it.
No, that's incorrect.
No,
Because I checked the plane before I fly.
Well, why is that?
Fly it.
Right.
If you were to check the controls, they worked correctly. Okay.
No.
Now,
They
Right.
wouldn't.
Wait. You got to go back to what we said, though. Remember, when I test flew it, I turned everything way down. So the control surface on the EDF were so small that it didn't really show up. It's very similar to
I
yours.
see.
Remember, when we did
gains
yours,
were
we had them on high rates and a high gain. So yours actually went, hey, why is the elevator going up when we're putting ailerons in, But the little EDF, that it only moves, eighth of an inch or something because it's an EDF. So it's very similar
In
to
high
Funracer.
rate? In high rate or low rate?
He didn't have a high rate.
yeah,
he had
just
one
A
rate.
Oh, one rate.
So it was just a lower rate.
and plus,
here's
here's the other
You're
thing.
right.
Mike.
It wouldn't.
You got to remember. So I do the elevator, elevator right. It goes right. You do it left, up, down. But I'm looking at those things when I turn. Right.
Right,
I'm
and
not
we
looking
mentioned
to see
that on
I go right, and then the elevator.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying
was
is
kinda
that you
going
guys really
right.
didn't look at both
The
surfaces,
elevator.
which
No, not
Correct.
whenever
Yeah,
you're using
yeah.
a gyro, that's the better way to do it, right? We kind
Right.
of went through our
Correct.
best practices or whatever.
Well, and it wasn't until we turned the gyro on where it was compensating for that you really notice it. But yes, you are correct. You need to do a surface check, and when you go full up elevator, look at your ailerons too. Make sure they're not moving, because that's what a Delta wing would have done, one way versus the other. So, needless to say, we got it fixed, and Jim flew it a couple times and was having a blast with that
it was
thing.
a lot better. It was a lot easier to fly after that.
Oh yeah, well, and the gyro, once we flipped the gyro on, now it wasn't really like out of control kind of thing, trying to correct for itself. Because let me tell you, that was some weird corrections when we had the gains way up. It was doing some really funky things. I mean, it got away, and I was like, whoa, and I turned the gyro off and actually saved it once or twice because it just wanted to depart control flight. So anyway, that was a crazy story, but we got it figured out. So anyway, after all of that, Jay says, hey, let's fly the Turbo Beaver.
Yeah, because the day before we brought it out and forgot all the pieces for it, at least the wing.
Right, forgot the wing
We
bag,
left the wing bag at the house.
which you'll see on the video. Anyway, we pulled it out. Jay, put it all together. Or I put it together. Somebody put it together, and then Jay was charging batteries, and we got it all in and plugged it in, and something wasn't right.
Right. So the rudder wasn't working correctly, I think.
Well, nothing was working initially. Didn't we have to rebind it?
Yes, we did have to rebind it.
Yeah. So nothing was working, and then
Yeah,
kind of
we
did the
rebounded,
whole.
and then the rudder wasn't working, and it pulled out of the extension.
Elevator.
The elevator. That's right. It had pulled out of the extension. So I had to pull that servo out, pull the extension down, re-put it back together, tie it back so it was nice and firm, so it wasn't going to come apart. Put it all back in. Then I put it in backwards. Then I had to take it out again, put it in the right way. Finally got all that figured out, tested it all out. Everything was working. I give Mike the thumbs up, and I walked off, and I was, working on something. And then he was out just test flying it and just kind of shaking it out.
I was just trimming it out.
Yeah, just
so,
trimming it
okay,
out.
so this is one of those things that we need to caution listeners to. If there's a control surface that's not working correctly, and you think at the field you have figured it out, just put it back in the trailer. Go back to the bench and really figure out what the problem is, because whatever that problem could have been may not have been the actual problem. So the elevator was not working, right? And
Right.
Jay goes, "Oh, I know what it is. It's this extension." So he mashes them together, uses a zip, tie wrap, and he ties them together, and it seems to be working fine. However, I get the airplane up and I start flying. It hasn't flown in almost a year, I think, since the last
No,
time
not
I was there.
even. I've
you've
had
flown
it
it since
before,
then?
maybe like 6 months ago.
Okay, so he flew it 6 months ago, whatever, but he took the receiver out of it, and now we have to rebind it. So we got all that done, and now I just want to go up and try to get everything trimmed up again, because he did remove the elevator servo and the arm and all that stuff, so I'm going to have to get it trimmed. So I fly just a straight line, down the field, make a nice turn, straight line down the field, make a turn, straight line. Now it's flying hands off, perfect, everything looks good. Cob the power, just pull vertical, I'm about to just kick it into gear and do the vertical rolls up. Right as it got to the vertical and I went to go roll it, nothing. I got nothing. About 35 or 40 feet in the air, it's going vertical at full power. And I have no controls. None. So typical of anything else, it gets about another 40 or 50 feet up, and it loses energy. I think the motor did stop at that point, or at least, I thought it was going, but I don't think it was. I think it was just spinning. And then the airplane rolls on its back, comes down in a perfect nose down attitude. I mean, it was a really nice wing over kind of looking thing. It just fell over on its back, coming straight down at the ground. I am pushing the elevator back and forth. And I'm like, no. As it's coming down in slow motion, Jim goes, "Whoa." Jay's got his back to it. And that's it. No controls. Crunch. It hit the ground totally vertical, coming straight down. And now you can see, well, the listeners can't see, but Mike can see that there's a big pile of balsa wood in the background. I was devastated.
Very sad.
It was very sad because that was a gift to Jay. However, Jay, being such a good sport, was like, what'd you say? Thou givest and thou takest away.
Take it away. That's right. You gave it to me a gift. You were flying. You took it away.
But I feel terrible because that was
He turned to me and said, "And that's what you get for ruining Mike's plane." That's what he said.
That's not what I said.
How do you like it?
Yeah.
I don't like it at all, Mike.
The problem is he was able to fix yours. There's no physical way I was going to be able to fix it. I don't care if I had every piece of Gorilla Glue, balsa wood. There's no way. That thing was in balsa dust. It hit hard. So we, I was devastated because that's the first crash I've had in a long time. Knock on wood. I've been really lucky. Don't say that I'm good. I'm just lucky. Haven't had a major, accident where I've lost an airframe. I've kind of dinged one up or hit a wingtip or whatever, but popped the tail wheel off of it. But other than that, it's I was devastated. So I was feeling really bad. And to make matters worse, I'm leaving that afternoon, right? So I'm about to go hop on a plane and come back home, and we picked it all up, put it in the trash bag, and then I told, Jay's like, "Well, what happened?" I'm like, "I don't know. I had no controls." And even Jim was like, "Yeah, he was banging those sticks left and right, trying to get something to move, and it wouldn't move. I didn't have power or nothing." And so I said, maybe it was, at first I thought it was just the elevator servo, which is
It come undone, right?
right.
But it was
had come undone again. And so that's why I said, if it's the control surface not working, especially the elevator, don't fly it. Go figure out what the problem is. Because we took the elevator, so we popped the elevator servo out of the receiver and plugged it into a servo tester. It worked fine. So it was working perfect. What wasn't working perfect, though, Jay?
It looked like we had a cold solder joint on the
ESC. So we have a Castle Creations in there.
At the battery side or
yeah,
the
at the battery.
oh. Oh, bummer.
And the bummer part about it is that we had a separate BEC on there as well, but we had it's basically soldered in at the same joint. So now the BEC didn't get any power from the battery either. Otherwise, I would have been able. I mean, the motor could have quit, no big deal. I would have just floated it down and landed it. But because I had no BEC to run all the controls, the receiver died, everything died. And so when we got down and Jay picked up the parts, he picked up the ESC, and we're holding the red wire, and the red wire doesn't have one drop of solder on it, not one. It just was like plugged into the hole. So anyway, lesson learned that, if there is something out at the field that doesn't feel right, put it back in the trailer, go back to your shop, try to figure it out. It's the best advice I can give you.
Yep.
And you know what? I do that here. I don't know why I didn't do it there. Jay and I both are pretty good about it. We did it,
I kind of understand why we did it, because we forgot the stuff the day before.
Right.
And it's your last day, and it's like, come on, let's fly this sucker.
Right.
Come on, let's get, so it was just one of those, we just got that, both of us got that peer pressure. Come on, let's fly, let's get to flying this thing, blah, 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 blah. And,
And I think as well as the last time I was there, Mike, he had it ready to go, and then it wasn't working because the tail was messed up or something. And so the last time I showed up in Texas, I didn't get to fly it. So he was kind of like, yeah, let's fly it this time, and I got everything fixed for you. And I was really excited because everything was working and I got it all trimmed up, and then it was devastating. So unfortunately, I had to leave. That pretty much sealed our deal. I think I flew the L-39 one more time, and then I think Jay flew it. And then
at least that was
Hey,
fun.
I wanted to ask about the L-39.
Sure.
How did those landing gear work after, we did that? We
Yeah,
sort of
so
did a
I haven't
rebuild
had
on
any
those.
after we did that repair, and we sanded them and got them so they weren't seizing up. So since that repair and kind of oiling them and stuff, they've been working great. I haven't had a problem with them.
Cool. That's good stuff.
That's been working fine.
I will tell you though that Jay has some 6,000 milliamp batteries that
for the port.
Yeah, that are a little on the large side, and
They're 5,500.
Are they 55? I thought they were 6.
No,
Anyway, they're big batteries. I mean, a 5,000 milliamp is big. That's what I use. But he got these 5500s, and they're real wide and real heavy. And when you put that sucker in there, you definitely know a difference. Definitely see a difference.
But it flies fast.
From a standpoint, it flies faster, or from a standpoint
yeah.
of it's heavier, and you could tell the takeoff takes longer, or what?
Yeah, the takeoff takes a lot longer.
Yes.
Yes to both of those. The takeoff takes a lot longer to get off the ground than just the 5,000 milliamp, which is surprising because it's only 500 milliamps more, but the battery is bigger and heavier. And then when you come downhill, like if you did a split S or if you did like a, real high turn and then came down towards the field, you can literally hear it whistling. Man, that thing is moving. I told Jay, I said, if you ever crash this thing, that battery's going to be in the next county. It's moving so fast. But it does make for a fun, low speed, or a high speed, low pass kind of thing, because it is moving pretty quick, especially if you're coming down from out of altitude. It does pretty well. But it slows down really fast when you go vertical too. So it's a lot of weight to be hauling around.
When we were there, you never got a chance to fly it like in a windy or gusty, condition, did you? Because it wasn't really gusty from what I remember. It was really weird.
Remember, it was like no wind at all the whole time we were there almost.
So when I first flew that battery, it was really gusty. I flew it on a really gusty day. And let me tell you, where it does help out is on those days. Because, like sometimes if it's windy, that plane gets kind of blown around, it helps having a little bit of a heavier battery.
Sure.
So you definitely notice the difference. And it takes, since we had no wind the whole time we were out there, and it had definitely an extended takeoff. On a windy day, it takes off, nothing flat. If you drop the flaps, it comes right off the ground.
I know, but anyway, it was a good trip, and we got to fly a lot. I felt bad that we had 2 crashes with Mike's Funracer, but that got put back together. Have you flown it since? You been back?
No, I haven't. It's been pretty windy up here. So I really
had some bad weather
to...
too, I think, right?
What's
Did
that?
you have some thunderstorms or bad weather or something out there?
Yeah. I mean, it's been bad weather, like I said, since
since
the day I've been back. And unfortunately, my time went up to have really good days.
Sure.
take my paramotor out usually.
Ah, there you
So-
go.
So
Well, that's
I'm
okay.
usually jonesing for the paramotor right at the moment. So I do a
Well, that's
lot more
not
of
a
that
problem.
than. But the good news about the rain and the bad weather is that I've been working on that painting a little bit more,
Right. How's that going?
and it's going pretty good. I think I'm done with it. I've done as much as I really want to do anymore. At this point, I've gotten tired of taping it and untaping it and taping it again and untaping
Sure.
it. So I put my last gold stripes on. I tried to put a gold letter B on there with a stencil, and it was actually working out really well. But the material that the stencil was made out of is plastic, and so when I sprayed it, it dripped from the stencil.
Right.
It was perfect
Right.
on the spray on, but it dripped from the stencil. And I even did it from way back. I took the ideas. It just still
Sure.
was wet by the time it hit that stencil, and so I didn't.
You using an
notice it.
airbrush or a can?
Yeah, I used the airbrush. Yeah.
Okay. You had way too much paint coming out of there then.
No, like I said, I was way. It really was just too wet when it hit that. Thing. So
The stencil.
So it just dripped. And so it ruined it. It ruined the. But I don't. So
Oh.
I don't know if I'm gonna fix it or not. I might try to put some tape on it, and get some of that stuff off or whatever, and then paint the parts that get lifted. But I don't know. For right now, I think I'm gonna aim at putting it together, and then maybe I'll fix it.
Yeah,
once I
sure.
get
Go
it
out and
flying.
fly it and get it all trimmed up, and then come back in there and
Yeah.
kind of tweak on it. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's
if you
what I do next
if you
time.
take packing tape, and if you're going to use a stencil, I'll let you know, because our listeners will know as well. But if you're going to use one of those, they call it frisket film, but it's like a plastic, hard plastic
Yeah.
cellophane, like a overhead projector. It's clear.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, if you take that and you cut out your logo, which I think is what you did, and then you put it on there, you just have to hold it. The airbrush has to put such a small amount of paint out that you just barely see the paint going around. And you basically have to layer that right on the outside of the actual stencil itself, so light that every time you finish, that paint is already dry. That way you're
Yeah.
not dripping it. If you get in there
I
and you
might-
pull a
this
lot
was-
of paint through there, it's
I
not
think
gonna
that
stick
I
or
might
dry.
have had too much thinner in it, and I think I might have had it was a pearlized one instead
Yes.
of the other paint that I was using, so it had a little different characteristics to it too. And
Correct.
so that's probably what happened.
And if you have too much thinner in it, that'll do it too, because now it's more of a liquid than
Yeah.
a paint. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
right.
Well, that makes more
That's-
sense.
That's what I think. That's what I think.
Now-
Probably more likely the case is that than anything.
Now
'Cause
you
I did
have
what you said. It still did it.
you're painting it off foam, and it's EPP foam, right?
Yeah.
Or
EPO.
EPS, EPO, something like that.
EPO.
So if
EPO.
you took the clear packing tape that you just get at your department store, your hardware store,
Yeah,
just a
I
clear
know,
packing
it'll
tape, and
lift
just
it and
stick
stuff,
it
and then
on
just
there,
repaint
it'll
it, but-
lift not only the gold but the blue underneath it as well. So it'll go right back
Yeah,
to the
that-
white. Now the bad
Yeah.
news about that is that if you've painted a really heavy coat on the blue, and now you go back to
Yeah.
paint it, you'll see a line
Yes.
there where you you
Yeah.
pulled everything off.
Exactly. So I don't know if I'm going to bother. I might just sand it instead, lightly sand it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
that
you
might
could do that
work.
too.
And
You can lightly sand it and then paint a little bit of blue over it, and then do it
Yeah.
again.
So another thing
whatever.
that you
I mean,
can
I
do,
don't mind.
Mike, is you can take a black Sharpie and just trace around the actual logo itself,
that's a good idea.
and then just take a Q-tip and
Oh,
dip it
blue.
in the blue,
Yeah.
and then just touch around the outside.
Now that's something I might consider doing. But
Yeah.
again, I think I'm ready to just see this thing fly. I've been
Yeah, we've heard a lot about it. We're interested to see it fly too.
yeah. So and the good news is that it's windy here, and that thing needs a little bit of power coming in. So and I don't typically fly that way, so that's going to be a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
But I know about it, and it needs power on the landing. But with it being windy, that will be helpful to making that happen properly.
Yeah, sure, because you'll have to keep the power in to get through the wind anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of
that's true.
penetrate the wind. Yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that's good news too, because you can actually fly it and then, test it out. It'll be interesting because, I want to hear how you got it set up, how the maiden goes, so we're excited about that. And
Oh yeah,
let
me
us
too.
know.
And then this is coming at the right time of year in Texas, where the temperatures, are reasonable for a human to stand outside for a while.
Sure.
And, people still fly because it's windy. It's not so bad, really, a lot of times.
Right.
But if the sun's beaming right on you, it gets hot and can be uncomfortable. So this is a good time of year for the weather to be getting better, and so both I hope to see an uptick in my paramotoring and my RC flying. We'll
There
see
you
how it
go.
goes.
Well, I hear you on the weather. Phoenix had its first week where the temperatures never reached 100. So the temperatures broke, and now we're starting to track down. I know that sounds weird, but all summer long you've been over 100 degrees.
It's so cold.
It is cold. I had to put my winter jacket on because it wasn't 105.
Oh my god!
But anyway, it was pretty funny. Well, so what size
I wore long
battery?
pants.
What size battery are you going to use in the jet?
It's a 22.
Oh, so you're using your standard 22.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
That's why I got it. It's
Well,
it's actually similar in powering to the A10 bus thing that I built.
Oh,
I think
right.
we talked about this before.
Sure.
And so it's going to fly a lot like that A10 in the sense of power. And the A10, it was sluggish because it's such a big plane and the way the wings are where they are at.
Right.
And I imagine this plane will fly a lot like that A10, so I don't think it'll be too different from that. Because it's not
probably
designed to,
lighter
like,
though, right?
It probably is. It probably is lighter.
Yeah.
They're pretty close though. They're going to be pretty close in weight. I did a good job, I think, of keeping my A10 light as I could.
Sure. Well, the good news is that while you're at Wings Over Springs, you did get a 2200 millimeter graphene battery.
Yeah, I use that to start my paramotor with too.
Oh, nice! Look at that. So the graphene battery actually will do really, really well in your paramotor and in your little EDF jet. So we're
so
interested
obviously it's the paramotor. It only is for the starter of the paramotor, obviously not to fly it.
Right.
But the interesting thing is I'm no battery expert guy, but I learned a lot more about batteries over that, trying to figure out what the cranking apps of a battery are.
Sure.
And unfortunately, the C ratings aren't really very good on those batteries. A lot of the times, they just sort of make up the C ratings.
Right.
And so you but you have to use the C rating to determine what the cranking apps are, and that the starter basically uses 635 watts, which is like 60 amps. So you need about 60 or 70 amps cranking power to get that thing to turn over and stay turning over.
Wow.
And so for a 2200 3-cell, you need basically a 50C battery. Well, actually a 30C would probably do it, but that's barely 60 amps. So you probably want some plus. And so I'd say a 40C or a 50C battery to do that kind of cranking amps. So what I decided to do was just make a parallel adapter out of some XT60 connectors.
Sure.
And I'll get my juice from that. That will help me get what I need.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of neat that you're able to do them. Well, best of luck on that. We want to hear as soon as you get that up in the air and running. So that gives us an opportunity to hear how this goes. So I'm sure it'll go fabulous, as Jay says.
If there's enough room in that fuse, maybe I'll put those two batteries that I made that parallel adapter for in there too, and see how that goes.
There you go. So you fly it on the. So would you fly it on a 6-cell? Yeah, it probably would add a lot of weight.
No, it'd be a 3-cell still.
Just a 4400.
Yeah, 4400.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, very, very cool. Well, the cool thing when I was over at Jay's place is that, I know on one of the podcasts in the past, he was talking about his 3D printer and having all kinds of weird things going on with it. And I was always busting his chops because Spencer got a new 3D printer, and he has the liquid one, whatever they call it. What do they call that? The
resin.
Oh, the resin printer. Thank you. He got a new resin printer, and so it does incredible detail. We made these really small static wicks for his F-16, and we made some pitot tubes, and we did a bunch of other stuff, and it's really interesting to see how it works. And it's on all-in-one unit. It basically, you pick it out of the box, you put your stuff in there, pour the resin in, and then just hit the start button, and it goes. You do have to have the software to be able to kind of make the slice it up. I think they call it slicing software, right?
Yeah. Slicing software comes in a couple of different brands or uses. I use a thing called Cura for my slicing software.
Right. Well, so anyway, when I was in Texas, I was able to we didn't do a whole lot of 3D printing because we did mostly flying and traveling, but we were able to do some 3D printing, and there were a couple big projects I think that Jay was working on when I was there. it was one of those things that I was like, hey, why is this? And I touched it and it popped up, and I think I ruined one. But I learned not to touch it while it's actually printing.
Yeah,
that's never a good thing.
That's a
so
little bit of a no-no. Yeah, so I took the plunge. Like I said, I had a wild hair one night, and I did some research, and I ended up ordering a 3D printer, and I thought I got the easiest one to use out of the bunch. And I think you mentioned it to Spencer, and he said, yeah, Jay got this easy 3D printer, and Spencer was like, yeah, there's no such thing as an easy 3D printer. I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
right, exactly.
And so I wish to say that Spencer was right. There are no easy 3D printers. I mean, there are some that are more together, meaning that the manufacturer has some good videos or things like that to help you out. Maybe a couple places for you to go, or they have software that helps you out. But they all have their quirks, and it's really hard. Like I said, I had nobody here to help me. But
right.
Luckily, I had a good friend of mine from New York that happened to come down, and he's into 3D printing, and so he was able to give me a couple of good pointers, and I was able to talk to him. Also, a few of your guests that we've had before, friends of yours that came on, and so there was a few people that I could talk to. But really, what helped me out, I went on Facebook for this particular machine that I got, and there were several Facebook groups, and they really helped me out because I could talk to people from the manufacturers to people who've worked on this machine, and of course there was just a whole repertoire of history. So my print is not sticking to the plate. What's wrong? It's coming out in this gooey fashion. It came out. It is on fire. What should I do?
Right.
And so you'd be amazed that everybody else, you could just go back there, do a search, and you could find pretty much what's going on, and you can decipher what's happening and stuff. But yeah, like I said, it's been a bit of a chore. I would say it's taken me about a full month of printing and ruined prints and crying and frustration. But it was kind of like similar with you getting into the jets.
Right.
It seems easy. Somebody explains it, like Spencer explains to you, hey, this is what you got to do. But it's not until you actually get down and get your hands dirty and take something apart like 5 times and put it back together that you go, oh, I understand what's happening now because I took this thing apart. And it was kind of the same thing. I kind of had to take my machine apart about half a dozen times to kind of figure out what was all going on wrong. Not because the machine was terrible. I'm kind of cursed. I always get those Monday or Friday machines. So everything I read about the machine, this is a great machine because of XYZ. But I just happened to get the one that they dropped. I got the one that they the guy didn't screw the bolt in all the way. That type of thing. So once I figured out how to make sure the bolt's tightened, then the machine starts to work. So once I started getting the machine to start to print, they have this thing called Thingiverse where people put their models or things that they create on for free for the most part. You can donate to those people that create these things, everything from paper clips to plastic knives to any kind of thingamajig you could think of.
Sure.
So I looked up my machine, and sure enough, people were like, hey, I was having this problem, XYZ. And I would read about it, and I go, hey, my machine's kind of doing that. And I would print out this thing, add it to my machine, and then my printer started printing out better. And so I just started printing all these things out for improving my machine. And it was just incredible, all the things that were out there to help make your life easier with your 3D printer. And then I finally, yeah, kind of made me self-aware. So finally, after getting my machine to print well, then I said, hey, I should try to print out something for this RC stuff. That was the whole idea, right? To print out things for the RC things. So I think one of the things I printed out for my machine was I got a new. I had one of the things that you tested while we were down here. I got a new wing, little FPV wing.
Oh, that's right. It's like a little nano something or another. Nano.
Yeah. And so, in fact, Jim has the bigger version of that particular wing. So I went ahead and I printed out little guards for it. They're little winglet guards and a little skid plate. And so they had it out for the full version, and I just resized them to fit on this version, and I was able to print them out. And then it was just like one of these little things. I just started looking around. I just looked through my list or my rack of planes, and I just started typing them in, and I would just find little bits and pieces for all sorts of stuff. So, for example, for the L39, there's a whole bunch of parts to print out for that thing, such as the whole cockpit. You can print out everything for the cockpit.
That's pretty cool.
So that's one of the things I just started on. But then again, one of the other things, one of the projects that AK Mike, when he was down here last with me, we were working on his FPV goggles, and we were having problems with the for people who are nearsighted, putting glasses in it, and we kind of mod podged this set of reading glasses in his. Well, there's a fix for that. So Jim has the same. He has the same goggles. So I went ahead and I printed out these extensions that extend your view out, so that if once again, if you're nearsighted, you can what's the word? It lengthens the focal
focal plane.
I guess. Yeah, focal plane. So it's pretty cool. All the little things that you can find or make for this machine. So other things that I got into. So we're working on my first gas machine, right? So that was one of the things why you were down here, Mike.
Yep.
We were working on my first gasser. So Mike was putting it all together, figuring out things. Well, once again, it's all the other things that you don't think about. I mean, I'm a straight electric guy, so you need to have a gas tank.
Right.
You need to have a pump or a filler. All these little things that you don't even think about. So after Mike had left, one of the things I needed to get was a little pumper, a gas can, this, that, and the other thing. Well, you know what they don't have for gas cans? Gas caps. There are no gas. It's just, you get a filler tube or whatever, but you can't get like a solid gas cap. You can order that separately, but normally they don't come with them. So sure enough, I looked on Thingiverse, and there was a cap. I kind of just modified it slightly, and then I was able to print out a gas cap for myself. So now that when I get the filler, the stuff when my filler comes in, I have a little top that goes on it. I just have to drill a hole, put the thing on it, zip, zap, zap. Now I have a specified top just for that can. So it's just kind of cool, just the things that you're able to find on like Thingiverse or like 3D Create and some other websites that are out there. But it's interesting. It's just it's a little tedious to get into at first. To get into this. Now, of course, I almost had an Amazon moment, Mike, like you normally have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, I was like, I sure would like to have a resin printer because for the cockpit for like the L39, I can print some things out, but, the detail's just not there.
Sure.
And I just got my machine to where it's printing really good for the nozzle that I have. But I also bought a whole bunch of nozzles so I can print out really, really fine detail. I just was like, I don't know if I want to take this nozzle off to put this one on, and then I have to figure out all, re-level
Right,
the
you have to
bed,
figure, yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, I'm on there, and I find somebody has a used 3D printer, resin printer, but it's not. It's like it was like a display model, and normally they run, like the one that Spencer has, like $250 or so, and they had it on sale for $100. So I put a bid on it, and then I came to my senses. I was like, I got to finish this other plane. I don't know if I want to spend my money on getting another printer. Then I got to figure that one out and get other things that I need for it. Just to print out, and all I'm going to print out is just this cockpit. That's the only thing I could think that I wanted to print on it. And I was like, I can wait on that.
Right.
And if I wait for like maybe another 6 months or another year, I bet you the price of those 3D printers are going to drop a whole bunch. Yeah, right.
Or you could
I'm
just call
putting out
Spencer.
there
He's
this
got one
spring,
already.
So, once again, I was thinking all that, and I was just like, because
Exactly.
I know you want an L39 cockpit, so hey.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be nice. I want a big
you'll have to
L39
work
cockpit
out.
though. Can you make me a 1/5 scale? Because I need that for
I'm sure
the
you just
turbine.
blow up the one from that one, I guess, theoretically. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You don't like the one you bought, Mike?
That's hilarious. What's that?
You don't like the cockpit you bought?
No, the L39 didn't have one. It doesn't have the the cockpit for the new L39. Not, the Motion RC one that I have has a cockpit, but the big turbine version doesn't. So I was looking
Right,
for
but wasn't
one.
there,
They
like,
do
some
have one
cockpits that you
available.
were
I could
looking
order.
at?
That was I actually bought one for the F-15. So
Oh, that's
and
what
it's
it was,
okay.
right? But
I
wasn't it
mean,
the wrong
it's just a
size or
little
something?
smaller. I have to modify it. Yeah, it's just a little bit
Yeah.
small for just a drop in.
Yeah.
I'd have to do some modifications. So I just haven't gotten that far. It'll fit with all the radio trays and everything in there, but I just have to kind of get it in there. Unfortunately, my job has changed somewhat. I did go to a new airplane, and I'm going to be flying a lot longer international, probably over the Pacific to China and some deep South America stuff. So I go to training here shortly, and then hopefully I'll be traveling longer distances and doing that kind of thing for work. But I've been having to study, for this change, and so I haven't flown a whole lot. I did go flying with Spencer and Barry not too long ago. We all went out to the field, and I got to fly Spencer's new MXS that he just built, so that was kind of cool. And then I did have.
So, Mike, when you're flying your big plane, do you
Sure.
get more airline miles now because you're flying that?
Yeah, they don't give us airline miles. I do. I get
Oh.
airline
Oh,
miles.
that's too
I mean,
bad.
I travel more miles, but I don't get points or nothing. So, but it was a nice try. It's a good thought. So, well, really quickly, we decided that Jay needed at least a bigger airplane, and we started putting his giant Acromaster together, and we got most of it done. I kind of had to leave, but we didn't get to maiden it or put anything else in it, but we got all the parts put together. So it looks really good.
That's major.
Yeah, it was major. He, I think he kind of looked at me
Pretty
and went,
much.
"Wow, how
I've
does
never
this
done
work?"
that before.
So he's never done it. So I was like, "Oh well, let me help you." So I showed him how to get out the Dremel and mark it off, and zip, and it fits perfect now, I think. But or at least it did when I left. I don't know what he did with it when I left. Probably yanked it off of there and said, "Oh, okay." So, but yeah, it's a couple of parts that we didn't have that we needed to actually get it started, and I think the biggest problem was that, when you go from electric to a gas, you can run around kind of like Mike runs around with a 2200 milliamp battery. Jay runs around with a DX9, so he only needs 8 or 9 channels. Most of them are 6 channels. I think Mike's the same way. Everything you fly is 6 channels. When you jump up to a gas or a turbine or something that's much larger, all of a sudden 9 channels or 8 channels or 6 channels is not enough. I actually on my L39 I have a 20 channel. Because now I've got everything separate. That way I can get everything matched, and everything is working. And on the gas airplane that Jay has, it's a biplane,
Right.
so we have 4 aileron servos, right? And then we have 2 elevator servos, which is usually not the case.
One.
Normally on an electric, you only have 1 servo for the stuff that we normally fly, and then 1 rudder servo. So there you go, 1, 2, 3, and then plus
and then the throttle.
that's 7. And then you need a throttle servo, so that's 8. Well, you need something else though,
That's
too,
right, the
right? You
CDI
need
for
an
the
ignition.
Yeah.
Because we have an IBEC in there that shuts off the ignition. You want to put that on a switch. So now you need
That's 9, right?
there's 9, right?
I think
And
we're
then
forgetting something.
you've got something else plugged in
I
there.
don't
What did we
know.
plug
I
in
think
there?
it came out. I think we needed 10.
How do we forget?
10 or 11. No.
Right. We
A
needed 10.
gyro?
No, well, your gyro's not. You can plug the gyro in your receiver if you want, or you can just use it.
Yeah, but doesn't it
Yeah,
normally need a
sometimes,
channel
yeah.
to turn it on or off
Yeah.
or whatever?
It depends. Yeah. So, but I think the other thing we needed was a choke, because you can actually put the choke on a servo if you want. Like I think Jim has
Right.
one with a choke on a switch. But anyway, all it is a little servo that goes forward and back.
FR
And that's
Sky to
basically
the
what I was gonna have to
rescue.
do. I
Correct.
couldn't do it on my
Yeah.
Spectrum. So basically, I
Right.
found out that for the Free Sky, the FR Sky, the nice part about that is, so most of the receivers are all 8 channel, and I was like, well, this sucks. So I'm right back where I was. I had an 9 channel. So what's an 8 channel receiver
Sure.
going to do me? And then I noticed that the nice part about their system is that they have S-Bus and that they can go up to 16 channels. Well, how am I supposed to use 16 channels? I mean, I could see where when I'm flying some sort of quad or if I'm doing a an FPV plane with a control board on it, and I have it doing different things or controlling cameras. With the S bus I'm able to do that, but just for a regular plane, I was scratching my head. And then I just happened to be looking around, YouTube, and lo and behold, they have these S bus to PWM converters that can do either 8 or 16 channels. And so therefore, why would you need an 8? Well, if you already have an 8-channel, receiver, then you just tell it to do S bus, and now you can get the 8 out of it, and then another 8 out of a one of these transformers or converters. So for me, I saw that some of the receivers that I was using before, like I said, for the FPV stuff, they're tiny. They're teeny tiny receivers. They're full range, and the ones that I was going to use was my 900 megahertz. So they're super long range. I mean, for flying miles and miles away, are exactly the same price or cheaper than a full size receiver. So
Right.
I went ahead and ordered up a couple, and they're coming on the way. And I ordered up a couple of the 16 channel converters are on the way, and I just kind of strapped the two together, and wham bam, I have a 16 channel receiver that I can go out 5 miles. So
Well, I guarantee you're not
know,
going to be
but
going
I'm
5 miles in that
definitely
big
not
airplane.
gonna lose, reception on it either. That's mainly what I was going on.
That's true.
There was no getting jammed out on this thing, so I'm good to go.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're excited that he's got that going. I know that's another project, and I think he's able to the point now, I think, where Jim can help him out, and he can try to get it started. You're coming in the spring, you said. We've got the Electric Festival coming up in February. Shannon Gallagher reached out to me, and he wants to kind of touch base with us. I think they're planning on some new stuff this year. Best in the West is the jet rally that I went to last year that Spencer and Barry and I did a podcast on. It's coming up next week. Spencer and Barry, I think, are going to go. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in training, so I'm going to be out of here. Special shout out to Harry Middleton. He was here at the Electric Festival. Him and Big Mike, and he's going to try and go to the Best in the West too. He emailed me the other day or messengered me and asked me if I was going to be there. So, and speaking of Big Mike, special shout out to him too. He actually wound up going to the hospital with some health issues. We saw that on our Facebook page, and we want to wish him the best and tell him to get better. He did get out of the hospital and went home. I haven't seen an update yet, but we wish him the best and just want him to know he's in our thoughts and prayers as well. So get better, Big Mike. I'm hoping to see you here in February when you get back out to Electric Festival and show us your new toys. He's always exciting and it brings new toys. And I did see a sneak peek of a very large helicopter. So I don't know if that's what he's bringing, but that thing was massive. And Mike, it's your turn to maiden that thing. So.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we'll get somebody. Maybe Spencer or somebody can maiden it for him. Let's see. Man, our hour is up. Holy smokes. I think we caught everybody caught up after we've been gone and back into the swing of things. I have to give a special shout out to our UK listeners. Craig Blake reached out to us on YouTube with our new YouTube channel and said, "Great podcast, keep it up." So we'll give him a shout out and let him know that if he gets out to his flying field, give us a thumbs up and shoot us a video. If he jumps on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, that's the Parkflyer Podcast Listeners Group. And post a picture and some of your flying activities while you're out there. So, sure. Let's see, what else? If you want to know, if you want us to talk about something specific or if you're interested in a topic, email us at parkflyerpodcast.com and we can get back with you. All three of us are on that email, so one of us should respond relatively quickly. What else?
Parkflyerpodcast at gmail.com, right? Is that what you said?
That's what I said. Parkflyerpodcast at gmail.com. And it actually
just
pushes.
Make sure I heard it right.
Yeah, it actually pushes to, I think, all of our email systems. So I actually comes across my phone if I get something from there. What else? What am I missing? Anything? Anything else going on?
Nope.
No, not that you can think of? Wow. Any big projects coming up? What do you got, Jay?
Well,
Still
like I said, unfortunately,
3D printing and doing some more stuff.
I'm going to probably be doing some more 3D printing and learning about that. Like I said, I'm just amazed at all the things for planes that are out there. I mean, I've just barely scratched the surface just for things that there are for your RC planes. So I'm pretty excited. The other thing I'm kind of getting into is learning how to actually create my own projects as opposed to printing out other people's projects. So that's the next big thing for me is just, like I said, you have your 3D slicing software, and you also have your actual 3D creation programs. And so modeling, yes.
It's
so
3D
the
modeling.
One I'm
right,
trying
is
to
what
learn
you're
is
doing, 3D modeling.
Fusion 360. So it takes a little bit of brain power, and it's pretty powerful.
Very cool.
So taking this old relic of a dinosaur and teaching him new tricks is pretty interesting. Exactly.
Good luck with that. Yeah, no, I think we've all been learning new tricks here lately. So, and Mike, anything? You got the airplane coming up, so we'll have to hear the.
Yeah, I'm gonna finally put that airplane together now that I've been stalling long enough with the painting.
I
So
know.
I'm
It's almost like you've been
together.
dragging your feet painting. Hey, speaking of which, just really quick, how do you think your painting skills have become? Since you started this project, you think they're better, worse?
Well,
Have
I'm
you learned
not
more?
afraid. I'm not afraid for sure of doing anything.
Right.
I still have I'm gonna have design troubles just because I don't do design.
Mm-hmm.
It's not part of my norm, and
Sure.
so that kind of stuff is gonna come slowly probably. But in terms of doing it physically, like it's not a big deal.
Right.
It just takes time. You're going to spend an hour or two for every layer that you do. I think that's the other thing is that you got to come up with schemes that are easy to tape.
Yeah.
And easy to
Sure.
and then easy to paint, so you don't try to, 3 colors is probably the max I'll ever do,
Right.
for any at this point, because I realized I was like, oh crap, I gotta wait. I gotta wait for it to dry, and I can paint the other stuff. Okay,
Right.
and so really it ended up breaking up over time, and then that kind of drags the project on, and because I don't really sit. I don't sit and do it for hours
Right.
straight away. One, I don't think I can. I don't think my personality allows for that.
Your attention span's not that long.
Squirrel.
Whatever. I just got other stuff I want to do.
Yeah, sure.
The paramotor calls quite frequently, so that's
I
really
gotcha.
an issue as well. So,
Not a problem.
but other than that, no, I think I am improving, and I can, I can do a lot of the stuff and understand what I have to do. I've been reading a lot about airbrushing as well, just generally.
Sure.
How to do certain things, and so.
Well, it's good. Everybody's
coming
learning
along.
new skills, so that's exciting. So it's exciting to be able to do some of the new stuff. So that's good news. Well, we appreciate it.
It was worth doing.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you were able to come out and see it done. You did get something in the mail, I think, just after the.
Yeah, Jay sent me some 3D printer parts. I was like, what the hell is that? And I was like trying to figure out what it was. I thought it was a stand for my transmitter. I was like, no, that's not it. Like, what the hell is? So I sent a picture. Look what I got. What is it?
Exactly.
And it's for my Talon to have straight wings. So
Yeah.
now I can I'll have a straight wing configuration for my Talon, which will make it less. It's supposed to make
Wobbly.
it or help it make it
Yeah.
less rocky. It
Yeah,
used to
wobbly.
wobbly.
Right.
Back and forth. So I'm looking
Well-
forward to that possibility. So.
I think you got something else in the mail too, didn't you? Right after Wings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah. So I get this big old box in the mail. I was like, what the heck is this? I didn't. And it was really funny. So I got this big box and it was kind of crushed. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. I hope it's not a plane.
Right.
And it turns out it was a fuselage for a fun racer. Who'd have
There you
thought?
go. Who would have
The
thought?
cool part of it was already painted, so I don't have to airbrush it. I can just
Right.
use that. It's not the same design as our original one, and I probably could add some to it to make it match somewhat,
Sure.
or line up some of the spots. But I think I'm done painting for a while. I
Sure.
probably need to focus on fixing planes that are broken and flying.
And flying some stuff. Yep.
So.
Yeah. Want to fly it.
Yeah.
Well, you can thank
yeah.
Jay for that. I honestly standing there at Holly Springs. We were in the car, I think, while he was ordering that to send it to you, so you could have it before you get home. I think he felt pretty bad. So it was pretty funny though. But I'm surprised they actually still had it because they've
Today I got
discontinued
home.
that now, right?
Discontinued,
They
but there's
discontinued
still-
the
there's
model.
still
Did they?
some-
Yeah, it's
They-
discontinued as far as I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Still a few
Yeah,
parts.
you can get parts and stuff, but yeah, you
Right.
can't even buy all the parts though. I think there's enough parts that are
Yes.
out of stock.
Some
that
of
you
them are
can't
out of
even buy the
stock.
parts for it.
Right. Well, I was.
Which is a bummer because I really wanted to promote that plane. I like it. You know, as much trouble as quote unquote trouble we've had with it, I think from a speed, from a flying aspect, it's a great intermediate plane.
Right. Right.
And it flies fast as hell, and it's fun to fly. It looks great in the air, and I'm just really sad that they stopped making them.
Yeah.
But
And you were
choice.
able to
That's
do
what
your
they did.
first inverted launch at the Wings Over Springs.
I did. In fact, before Jay crashed it, I was able to get an inverted launch out.
Yeah, I launched it inverted the first time around. I think you were like, "Hey, show me how it's done," and then you were able to do it, and it wasn't really bad, was it? It actually worked
No,
out
it really
pretty well.
wasn't.
Yeah.
It was much easier because you don't have to use as much rudder.
Right.
You still had to, but I didn't use rudder at all just to
Right.
see what it would do. And as long as you don't punch it when you're flying it, it won't skid along at all. And
Sure.
I just kept pushing. I had to keep reminding myself to push the elevator forward so that it wouldn't come to the ground. And that's how I stopped myself from, pulling it backward, because I would have done that. I mean, I think
Right.
if I wasn't like consciously telling myself push forward, push forward, push forward, and I was actually doing it too, I would have put that sucker right in the ground. And in fact, I think it started going vertical, and so I rotated around
It did. Yeah.
and then flew it from the
That was probably Jay's problem too. He was in his head going pull, pull, pull instead of push, push, push.
Well, Mike, to speak to that, it took me a long time to learn to come out of inversion by rolling, not by pulling. And I
Right.
don't know why that's the case. It just did. For whatever reason, a roll was scary or something. And so I found myself doing that pull and going, oh, God, it's going to hit the ground. And, not crashing.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just one of those things that to me is not natural. Even though when you think about it, it's the best thing you could do when you're inverted.
Sure. It's
Or
the
you don't
roll.
know where you are. It's better, instead of pulling up, it's just roll it. Just try to see where the wings are so you can figure out
Correct.
what's going on.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
Because
Yep.
I've done that before too. It's inverted and I can't really tell because it's too far away or whatever. And I pull the stick forward. Bad mistake, because if you could get yourself in a bad position.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just, for now, I just roll it. And then, oh, look, it's rolling right. Okay, great. This is the
Right.
direction I'm going in.
Well, that's the prudent thing to do, trust me. So. But
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of programming your brain to be able to, to think about it that way, because you're pushing and rolling,
Truly.
and then, it's different. So
And in panic situations, I've still pulled. So
Right.
I know.
that's
I know
pretty
that's
common. I will tell you, even in the real aircraft world, flying aerobatics, people do that all the time. If I get them upside down, they want to pull through. They don't want to roll up, right? So it's very difficult to reprogram your brain not to just go, oh, the horizon's behind me, I better pull towards it, as opposed to push and then roll upright. So, well, man, our hour is up. We appreciate all you listeners. Make sure you reach out and send us a note on YouTube, or we'll try to put some more videos up there. And then reach out via email and let us know what you think. And if you're on Facebook, join our Facebook listeners page at the Parkflyer Podcast listeners group. So, guys, it's been a great time catching up with you, and I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks, huh? So, Michael from Arizona,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Parkflyer podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.